Hey everybody, welcome back to week 3 of college football coast to coast. Tyler, we are in full swing. This is, in some cases, the first week of conference play, the last week of non con. For a lot of teams, see how that kind of works out as we go throughout the show and throughout this weekend. Um, Start off our show like we normally do. Our AP top 25 risers and fallers. A lot happened this past weekend. Some teams that were unranked found themselves in the rankings for the AP poll that came out earlier this week, as well as we saw some teams that were still in the top 25 after losing week 1. They lost again in week 2, and the AP poll has shown its true colors by not including them in the top 25 any longer. So a lot of changes have been made further down the list. Your top 10 really hasn't changed much at all for the most part for this week. But outside of that, a lot of things have happened. I remember the days looking at the top 25 and seeing a lot of undefeated teams on there, and there's a lot of teams on here that are not undefeated that are included on here. It's quite a few. I mean, a handful or so. So we'll be getting into our risers and fallers. Here, Tyler, let's start with our fallers. Who's your faller for week number 2?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty consistent pick here. I'm going to go with the Florida Gators, who had a lot of preseason hype with DJ Lagway coming back, but still the coach. Billy Napier. They should have got rid of him last season. It feels like this has just been long overdone. But Scott Strickland, the AD, just beat the table for his name every single season. It feels like, but. That was just an abysmal performance, especially on the offensive side of the ball against a very talented South Florida team, which I think is too low in my opinion. They should be in the top 15 at least, because just look at their top 25 wins. You could say what Boise State is. I guess we'll see how the Broncos do the rest of the season. And they beat a Florida team on the road in the swamp in a defensive game where both offenses really particularly didn't play well, but Florida drops all the way from number 13 to the unranks. So we'll see. We're really gonna test are the players still invested, in both Billy Napier in this season. So you have a tough matchup this week on the road in Tiger Stadium against a top 5 team in LSU. So we'll see if Florida can bounce back. It feels like a must win because the college football playoff this season, it feels like 10-2 is more likely going to get you in. And just we talk about Florida's schedule. They have LSU this week. They got Miami on the road next week, and then you have to go to Texas A&M. So it doesn't get any easier. So Florida, to me, just feels like an easy fall just because of their disappointing performance against a very talented South Florida team.
Yeah, I could agree with you with that faller for you. Yeah, Florida just, with what the resume looks like so far and what's to come, it was a big ask in the first place. For something like that to happen, and now we can see that it looks really far-fetched to say that they're going to be in the college football playoff or even in the top 25 anytime soon. They could obviously find their way back into that as the season goes on, but you lose games like that you should be winning in the grand scheme of things. When you play 8 conference games and 5 of your 8 conference games are ranked matchups, you're talking about you're not favored in those games. You're looking at a 3-win season at the rate they're going, 3 to 4 wins. And if that's the case, Florida needs to figure something out really fast. And obviously, I think that starts with Billy Napier at the helm. They really need some help there. A lot of names have gone out and gone around. We can talk about that at another time. And all of the notable people that could fill that spot that would be really good. So, but yeah, Florida struggling big time, but don't want to discredit how dominant South Florida has been in the first 2 weeks as well in those performances. So my faller of the week, I'm going to head over to the Big Ten SEC matchup, and it's Michigan for me. A lot of hype around Michigan, obviously, with the incoming freshman Bryce Underwood, going to Michigan and kind of supposed to be that new age quarterback, young true freshman quarterback that was supposed to show them, some promise there to make it back to a Big Ten championship and potentially the playoff. I had a lot of reservation about them, especially in their matchup this past week against Oklahoma. It just seemed really kind of a long shot for that team to even compete in Norman. It's a good environment there. Tough place to play. I mean, the fans are like right on top of you on the sideline. It's a really tough situation there. Sharon Moore just doesn't. I don't like his coaching style very much. He doesn't say much. He kind of sits there, kind of blank face. A lot of the time, it's kind of like Marcus Freeman type look. I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely no Harbaugh walking through the door
yeah,
anymore.
no, it's no Harbaugh anymore, and I just don't know how well that resonates with players in that style. You've seen a lot of changes being made, especially in Michigan. I mean, for a dominant program to struggle as much as they have last year and at the start of this year, it says a lot about the future, I think, of Michigan and whether they're all in on Moore or not. So it's going to be interesting there. And if Bryce Underwood, we've seen quarterback transfer all over the place. Bryce Underwood could be on the move soon, and I'm sure there will be a lot of teams that could be looking for a transfer at the end of the season if Michigan season doesn't turn out the way they hope.
Yeah, so we will now go to our risers. I'm going to stay in the SEC with my pick. I think that we really haven't really talked about this team. I'm sure that you're probably going to bring up another team that we haven't talked about that's catching our eyes. I'm going to go with Auburn, who's going from the unranked to number 24. Now, looking at their resume, they have that win against Baylor, which already improved because Baylor went on the road this past weekend and beat SMU in overtime. So that was a big win for the Bears. And if Baylor, continues to win in the Big 12, which is wide open with Arizona State losing this past week, Kansas State pretty much being out of the race with their recent loss against Army. Iowa State looks like the front runner for that conference. But I think that Auburn, with already 2 good wins, they have South Alabama this week. Should be an easy win for them, but South Alabama, is a prominent Group of 5 program that you don't want to overlook, and it's in-state program that's definitely want to go in there and put it to the test. But Auburn's schedule after that is going to get harder once they get to SEC play. But I think that Jackson Arnold, the rise of him at Auburn has looked good, and the defense has really stepped it up. Because I know it's Ball State, but they only gave up 68 yards to the Cardinals this past week in week number 2. So I've been impressed with Auburn's defense. So I'm going to go with Auburn as my riser.
Yeah, it's a good pick, I think, for right now. Like you said, the schedule coming up is going to be pretty tough. You're playing after this game, this upcoming weekend in South Alabama at home. You are playing 4 straight games of ranked opponents, and all of those opponents are ranked above you except for one. You're at home for Georgia and Missouri, but you're on the road at A&M and Oklahoma. So those are going to be tough games there for Auburn. So we'll see how well that turns out for them. That's a make or break stretch for them in the season. For me, I'm going to go to a team, like you said, in the same conference, kind of the same path and trajectory right now. I think it's a good time for us to talk about both of those teams. I'm going to go to the Missouri Tigers. I like the way that they've started out the season. Big win against, obviously, Central Arkansas. It's a tune-up game. But, I mean, honestly, Kansas-Missouri was supposed to be a close game. It was supposed to be a really good game. And Missouri took the cake and won by 11 on that one. And just really just ran them out of the game. In a lot of cases, I understand that, there isn't much of a running game at Kansas anymore outside of Jalen Daniels, being able to get out and stretch his legs and run and stuff. But, I mean, on the other side, you've got transfer quarterback from Penn State, Bo Pribula, by far is the early breakout quarterback, I think, in college football. The numbers that he's put up in 2 games is crazy. Has left a lot of people kind of shocked. I mean, 30 for 39 for 334 yards against Kansas. That's including 3 touchdowns. That's no turnovers. Is really, really good. I mean, anytime that a quarterback in college is above an 80 in QBR, you're talking that's Heisman type QBR, and that's what's crazy. I mean, so for him, this is a breakout season. Obviously, being a senior, kind of one last run with Missouri, and I think he's proven that he's a pretty good quarterback, especially being on the bench for the last 2 years at Penn State, getting his chance now at Missouri. So good for him. And yeah, Missouri looks like they're on the rise. Got Louisiana at home this week. Then you got South Carolina at home the following week. So a lot of promise there. I think we'll be talking about this team again once we get around to week probably 6. Being at home against Alabama is a huge game. Turning around, going to Auburn the next week if Auburn remains ranked. If you win those 2 games, you're in contention, and with the way the things look in the SEC right now. So a lot left on the table for Missouri this season to see how well they can finish. So moving into our games, so first game of our stretch for week 3, we're staying in the SEC. A lot of SEC talk going on. Shout out Tyler and Wade's SEC talk for a second there. But Georgia on the road at Tennessee, ranked on ranked matchup. Interesting one. Georgia being the higher ranked team in this scenario. Tyler, your thoughts on this? Georgia was kind of shaky last week. I think some weather kind of played into that a little bit and a delay, but still it reflected in the poll. Tennessee handled their business just fine. Is there anything that you see in this game that could be striking?
Yeah, there is some notes, injury notes for Tennessee side. 2 of their top cornerbacks are out for this game. So this is definitely going to be a crucial defensive performance for them. I think we're going to learn a lot about both these teams. I know that Tennessee played Syracuse, but Syracuse to me did not look great whatsoever. They barely survived against UConn. Their coach had them running laps after the game. But Georgia, it feels like a lot of people are alarmed with them, but don't they do this every single year where they're not really struggling against this team, but it just feels like they're going through the motions. I mean, it's Austin Peay and Marshall. I'm not really concerned about that. Once you get to SEC play, I think that this Georgia team is going to turn it on. And I know that Gunnar Stockton hasn't looked great at the quarterback position, and the wide receivers definitely need to step it up moving forward. You got Nate Frazier in the backfield too. And this Tennessee defense, I mean, they've given up a lot of points, especially to that Syracuse team in week number 1. I know they beat, the dog piss out of East Tennessee State, who isn't a very good football team. But I think we're going to find a lot about, how for real Georgia is. Can they go on the road to a hostile environment? It feels like every time we're talking about this, everybody is picking Tennessee, and Georgia just whoops them. So I'm going to go with Georgia on this one. I was going back and forth on this one. The line sitting at 3.5 to Georgia, which is very telling, even with Tennessee's top defensive starters at the cornerback position is out. Georgia only favored by 3.5. Should definitely tell you something. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Georgia. Tennessee's got to prove it to me in these big-time matchups. It feels like they always let me down when I pick them against Georgia, so I'm going to go with the Dogs. I think it is going to be a defensive-sided game, the way that these offenses have been playing. Joey Aguilar has really impressed me over the past couple of weeks. So I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go 28-24 for the Dogs.
Yeah, close game there for you. Picking Georgia, who's the favorite, in this situation. For me, I look at it from a holistic standpoint of where they're playing. Number one, we've seen teams struggle at Tennessee, shout out Alabama. But teams that have gone and they've really struggled to compete there, in night games a little earlier in the day, 2:30, still going to be a really good environment. People know how much is on the line for a game like this in week 3, super early in the season. But yeah, Gunnar Stockton hasn't shown me too much. I think under pressure will be the interesting piece to see how well he holds up against a pretty good defensive front for Tennessee. Offensively, I think is where this comes down to. I disagree with the fact that it's going to be kind of a low-scoring battle. Defensive, I think this is going to be a shootout. I think you'll see high scores. 2 teams, 30, 40 points would be no surprise to me in this game. The team to me that looks like can put points up on the board and fast is Tennessee. I think if they can control the line of scrimmage, they can control the ball well, not turn the ball over. I think that they can take this game. For me, I think that's the difference. I trust Tennessee more, especially being at home, than I do trust Georgia on the road, especially with seeing the lack of performance early in the season from Georgia that you said we've continued to see early in the season. But I just feel this is too early for them to be playing a ranked matchup like this and for them not to be on the hot seat, for a tough environment game in week 3. So I want to take Tennessee in this game. I'm going to go 42-35.
Wow.
In a high-scoring game and take Tennessee by a touchdown.
All right.
moving on to our next week's game. So a little in-state battle here, a game that I didn't think we would be talking about before the season started, but here we are nonetheless. It is a ranked matchup between number 18 South Florida. They're headed to Miami to face off against the Hurricanes, who are 5th in the country, who have really shocked a lot of people in the first couple of weeks of the season, both of these teams. I mean, these are two teams that I don't think anybody thought that at this point we would see Miami this high up in the rankings. And I don't think people thought we would even see South Florida ranked in a lot of cases. And they weren't to start the season, but heck, 2 really good performances can put you in a really good spot for a big game against a Power 4 team. So, Tyler, your thoughts on the start for South Florida through 2 games and how well can they play in another tough environment in Miami after coming off of a big win in Gainesville?
Yeah, I think the start-wise, if for the playoff aspirations, is about the best start that you could possibly ask for. You beat down a Boise State team that had a lot of hopes. I think a lot of people, I was looking at an article just a couple of days ago, like Boise State, the preseason, was most people's favorites to once again make it to that college football playoff and to beat a Florida team that a lot of people were high on. We'll see how good of a win that is once we get to, October and November. But yeah, this South Florida team, Byron Brown has been the quarterback that I have been talking about for the past couple of years, but the rest of the team hasn't put it around them. We looked at like a couple of years ago when they barely almost lost to Alabama. That felt like the potential, especially with Golick. I think that Golick is going to be the next great, head coach. Like I could even see Florida give him a call. John Sumrall from Tulane. So I think those are going to be like the top 2 head coaches in the offseason. I would not be shocked if they get a Power 4 offer. But looking at Miami's side, I did have some pause about Miami because it feels like that was like the team last year was the best that Mario Cristobal had in his tenure at Miami, and it was just a letdown. They started off hot, undefeated. Then they lost back-to-back games that they really shouldn't have. I believe they lost to Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech in consecutive weeks, and they just missed the playoff. But this Miami team of Carson Beck, they already had that win in week number 1 against a Notre Dame team that we will see if they were for real or not when we talk about them in a couple of minutes in their matchup against Texas A&M. But C.J. Daniels has really broken out at the wide receiver position. He has really taken over that wide receiver role with all the wide receivers that you lost last year, especially with Xavier Restrepo. You lost Cam Ward. You bring in Carson Beck. But I think it's the defensive improvement that is really notable for Miami. And they are favored by 17.5. The way that South Florida, they're coming off of a very physical game against Florida. I think that's definitely going to be costly. Miami is coming off of a game against Bethune-Cookman where, they didn't play their best. They won 45-3. I feel like they weren't showing all their chips in that game. It just feels like South Florida. I don't know if they're a very good football team, but it's very tough to go on the road in back-to-back performances, especially in South Florida heat. I know that they're in Tampa, but that's going to take a toll on you. So it's nothing against South Florida. I'm just going to go with Miami here. I think this is going to be 31-17 for the Canes.
Yeah, it is it is a marathon at this point. It feels like South Florida's in the sprint right now.
It's a tough stretch, man, to open the season.
And the question is that how long can they, hold that sprint, and how far can they go in that sprint? If you start the season with 3 non-conference wins against 2 teams in the top, against 2 teams that were ranked and a team in the top 5 is insane. Even if they do lose this game, they stay in the top 25, in my opinion. this is a really tough game. I mean, it is a 17.5 point line, and I could see South Florida covering that 17.5 and making this a 7 point game and sticking around. Question for me is that, Miami, they haven't turned the ball over very much to start the season. South Florida has forced a lot of turnovers to start the season, especially in that game against Florida. You saw a back and forth game, ball changed possession several times, but I think for a game like this, South Florida has to control the time of possession in their court. It would just seem a lot to do that, especially on the road at Miami. I think 17.5 is way too much in this game. South Florida is better than that, and I don't think that Vegas is giving them the credit for that. So I think, honestly, you could make this game 7.5 or 8.5 points, and I wouldn't bat an eye at it. I think it would make sense. I'm going to take Miami to win it. I'll take them to win it by a touchdown. I think 28-21 is probably my score for that. Miami's defense looks unreal, though, to start the season. It'll be really interesting to see if South Florida can score on them. And if they can, then South Florida's for real. I mean, that is yet to be determined. But if that does happen, then honestly, it would be no shock to me for them to win a game like this on the road. So
yeah, I think even with the loss here, I think that South Florida could still win
Sure.
out. I think other notes, we haven't really talked about the group of five, but I think some teams to really watch out for. James Madison, I know they just lost to Louisville. They could still be in the hunt. Tulane, I think, is also, even Navy. I think that I'm saying right now, the representative is going to be from the American. The American definitely has some teams, South Florida, Tulane, and Navy. I would definitely pick either three of those, but I think the front runner right now has to be South Florida just because of the resume.
Absolutely, yeah. South Florida by far is the best out of the bunch at this point. So we'll see how well this game turns out. It'll be a fun one to watch at 3:30 there on the CW network. So that's
everything gets crazy on that network. Let me tell you,
a little curveball there in the viewing. So for our last game, we're going to go to a matchup that we saw last year down in College Station. We flipped the script. We're headed to South Bend. The Aggies are going on the road to face the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It's going to be an interesting game here, Tyler. 6:30 game NBC. NBC always is covering that Notre Dame night game over and over again. My biggest concern is Notre Dame's defense is atrocious right now.
You can say the same for A&M because they haven't been too good.
Same. The question is, offensively, who do you trust more in a game like this? In my opinion, Marcel Reed is the guy to trust in terms of leading that team that's going to score the most points. I don't know how well, how multi-dimensional Notre Dame is. I mean, the problem is I feel like they've thrown all their chips on defense. And that's my problem. I mean, your RB2 is leading your team in yardage. So far at the start of this season, with Jadarian Price leading the way, it just feels that there's not a kickstart in their run game to start the season. They look behind a bit. CJ Carr really hasn't shocked me with anything so far. It's kind of odd to me that they didn't get maybe somebody a little more seasoned in that role. A true freshman playing quarterback for Notre Dame hasn't happened for a very long time. So it's kind of a curveball there. But yeah, to me, the better team at the end of the day is A&M. Take the ranking out of it. I think the ranking does not matter in this situation. Watching Notre Dame play Miami, watching Miami's defense shut them down just looked debilitating. They couldn't do anything offensively after that point. And Miami almost gave the game to them in certain areas, and Notre Dame just didn't want it. Like, they were just like, no, we're good. We don't want it. So it was really odd to see that happen. But to me, the more hungry team looks like Mike Elko and A&M right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But just going back to the offense of what I trust more, depends if Notre Dame actually changes their game plan and actually use their best player that they have in Jeremiah Love. Because I don't know what the heck Mike Denbrock was doing in week number one. It was CJ Carr's first really true start. And it was on the road, and you don't even use Jeremiah Love. I don't know if Jeremiah Love's still banged up because if you remember last year's playoff run, he was dealing with some injuries. But you got to also remember Notre Dame's coming off of a bye week, so they had an extra week to prepare. You could say it matters, but Texas A&M hasn't really played anybody like for the past couple of weeks. I mean, they played UTSA and Utah State, and this is Texas A&M and Notre Dame, like you mentioned, did play last year. It was 23-13. I think that both defenses last year were better than this year's roster. I think that Texas A&M as a whole has better talent on the defensive side. Like you mentioned, Notre Dame looked terrible. Like in the first half of Miami, they couldn't really stop them whatsoever. But I think that this is going to be different for Notre Dame because if you remember, Texas A&M had Connor Whiteman as their quarterback. Now you have Marcel Reed, who's going to be more of that dual threat quarterback, and they're absolutely loaded at receiver, especially with KC Concepcion, the NC State transfer wide receiver. He's really been Marcel Reed's favorite target, and they really have a 1-2 punch at the running back position. So both of these defensives have been struggling. So as crazy as it says that, I'm leaning more towards the over here, the way that these defenses have been playing. And I'm actually going to go with Notre Dame at home. I know that this is definitely going to be a tough game for Texas A&M. This is a tough road trip going all the way up to South Bend. And Notre Dame paired that up with an extra week to prepare. And I just don't really see that this Notre Dame team starts off this season 0-2. I think that they're too talented. So I'm going to go Notre Dame in this one. I'll go 38-35. It's going to be a lot of points in this game. The way that the defenses have been playing, they have to prove it to me. I say that watch it be like 17-13, but I am going to go with the Fighting Irish at home. I think you finally see Jeremiah Love get involved as he should.
Yeah, I'm so reserved
it's
about
like you were baffled there with my pick. You were not expecting Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting you to pick the non-SEC opponent, especially in this matchup. But no, I just don't trust Notre Dame right now. I don't trust in nothing right now. I can't trust Notre Dame. So I'm going to go with A&M. I think A&M's probably going to win this game. There's always low-scoring games in South Bend. I think this continues. I think it's a low-scoring game. I know the offenses are crazy. And especially A&M's offense. I mean, you put on 40-plus points in their first two games, but you also gave up 20-plus points in both of those games to Utah State and UTSA, and it just looks really bad.
There's been a lot of big plays, too. Like, you have to limit that, especially with a guy like Jeremiah Love who could just break one at any time. Right.
Well, I mean, A&M's not great in their front half, but I think they're good enough to be able to stop Notre Dame at least a few times. I mean, Jeremiah Love might, have a little bit of success, but I just haven't seen that yet. It just seems like teams are trying to collapse that line and really just fill his gaps. So to me right now, the better team is A&M. So yeah, I'm going to take A&M in that matchup. Let's go to our last little bit here of the rundown, and that is our best bets of the weekend. Tyler, let's kick it off with some good bets here, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to bounce back because you went 1-1. You nailed it with that Troy pick. Troy, honestly, I thought that was going to win it at one point. They were up 17-0 against Clemson. I think that we definitely have some question marks about Clemson. They have a tough matchup this week that we didn't really get to that game. But watch out for Georgia Tech and Haynes King, because you know what Haynes King is going to do. He's going to have like 30-plus carries. And the way that Troy was able to run on them did not look like a good sign at all. So that's definitely a good matchup to watch. But I'm going to go back to the ACC here versus an American. This is a little bit of revenge factor. Darian Mensah actually has to go back to where he started his collegiate career at Tulane. And give me Tulane 1.5. If you watched Duke last week, it was a close first half against Illinois. But Illinois proved us both wrong and just beating the doors off of Duke last week. But I think that Duke's defense is terrible. They won't be able to stop Jake Retzlaff, the transfer from BYU. He's definitely going to beat you through the air and with his legs. And Tulane's defense has really been solid. They just beat South Alabama. I know that they just put up 30 points on the Tulane Green Wave defense, but I think that Tulane is in for a bounce back here at home. So give me Tulane 1.5. And if you want to go frisky, you can even put them money line.
Yeah, good pick there. Going to be interesting game to tune in and watch, see what happens in the return back to Tulane. So for me, you just brought it up, game that I'm really excited about, really high on my watch list for the weekend. That is Clemson on the road at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech last year, I think, surprised a lot of people. I think they continue to surprise people in the first start of the year. Big win to start the season. They've played really well. So I'm going to go wild with it. I'm going to take the Yellow Jackets to outright win this game at home against Clemson. Clemson has not shocked me early in the season. Cade Klubnik, supposedly being the best quarterback in college football on people's list, has not panned out whatsoever through the first 2 weeks, losing at home to LSU and then almost losing in the first half. Pretty much, you lost the first half at home against Troy and ended up coming back and winning it at the end. But they haven't shocked me. So my best bet for that has to be an outright win for Georgia Tech. The way they're coached and the way their offense is run, they're resilient. And for me, it just seems almost a given that Georgia Tech is not going to lose a game at home like that.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. You were very high on Georgia Tech in the preseason. I believe you had them all the way to your ACC championship game. So we'll see. This is a big matchup for both of these teams. If Clemson loses this one, they still have to play Florida State at the end of the season. So if they lose this one, to be honest with you, they might already be out of the playoff race. So it won't even be October. But I'm going to go to an SEC rivalry game that is always crazy, has some wacky plays, and it's always high scoring. I know this is an insane number to pick at the over, but give me the over 62.5 between Arkansas and Ole Miss. If you watch both of these defenses, I think Arkansas still, they played 2 cupcakes to start the season. Ole Miss's defense looked, not great at the start of that Kentucky game. I mean, Kentucky went out to a 10-0 lead, but Ole Miss and Austin Simmons, he did suffer an injury. But I just think that both offenses are very talented. Taylor Green is a quarterback that I think that a lot of people don't really give credit for in the SEC. So, I mean, we've seen like 52-50 games. I wouldn't be shocked if both teams at least get into the high 30s and 40s. So give me a lot of points in the battle of Arkansas and Ole Miss.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game for the SEC there early in the season to see what could happen there. For me, I'm going to kind of throw a bit of a curveball in. I'm going to change it up from what we talked about. I think I'm going to head to trying to think, man. I was like, I had it and I lost it. Had it and I lost it. Who could it be? On the edge of my seat. And I just can't. There it is. I got it. I'm going to pick one that a team that I think is really dominant to start the season that nobody was really paying attention to. We talked about them in the Big 12 for a little while. They're playing a home game and a surefire win, it seems like, in this one. That's Oregon State on the road going to Lubbock to face off against Texas Tech.
Yep.
Texas Tech.
State, yikes.
Texas Tech is the 23.5-point favorite. I say take the points and run. 23.5 is not enough points in this one. Keep it going. I think they win this game huge. To me, this looks like a 50-plus point game for Texas Tech, and I could see them giving up maybe 2 touchdowns if that's even likely. So for me, I say, take the points, take Tech at home. They look unstoppable early in the season. So that's those are our bets for the weekend there. If you guys want to ride with us, you can. If not, go out there, enjoy your weekend, watch some football. Have a great one. We will see you back for week 4. A lot of conference games happening again next week. So be back for that. And we will see you guys again next week.